Shut up and sit down.
Go outside. See those kids? They're having the time of their lives riding their bikes. They know what's up.
I ride my bike. I ride my bike all around. Yes, I do.
Your addiction gets worse. You spend less time at work doing work and more time looking at bikes.
I ride by all my friends and I wave hello.
You are listening to the Dialed Podcast with Matt Lee Grand, Evan Price, Lance Hepler, and Jake Von During. Contrary to popular belief, owning a bike doesn't make you a cyclist. You have to ride it as well.
My bike is very good.
Become obsessed with your bike. Fixate over specs, head angles, and weird things like tire
So I
rubbers.
better have my helmet on.
It's time to ride your brand new bike.
It's so much fun just pedaling up and down. Yeah.
One day you see a press release for a brand new bike. It's like yours, but 15% lighter, 35% stiffer, and it's red.
Hi, welcome back to the Dial Podcast. I am Jake Von During, and I'm here with Lance Hepler.
Lance Romance. Hi.
Hi, Lance.
Hi.
To his right, Evan Price.
Ladies and gentlemen of the interwebs, I have to do that because none of us are drinking anything, so I can't even ask what are we drinking. Do we have sparklings in there? Lance, can
I'll
you
get
grab
some.
some drinks?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I looked for some, Evan, and they're
Are
gone.
they out?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Where did they go, Evan?
I usually am the culprit. I'm usually the culprit,
We're
but
out.
but I think last week I actually did not steal as many as I typically do.
I got some in the van. You want me to get some out of the
Actually,
van?
yes.
In River down by the van.
He already did his intro, so that's good. We'll just lock the door. It's just going to be me and Jake today.
Nice. As Lance literally left the room, and he's outside
He has
now,
actually left the room.
digging
Yes.
through his van. Cool.
Ladies and gentlemen of the internet. Yeah.
Let's do some backpedaling. You raced last week,
Yeah.
and you had a good time. And
Yes.
I think, well, it wasn't last week. It was yesterday.
It was yesterday. Oh, my God. Yeah, I was about to agree with you. Yeah, it felt like last week already.
Yeah, it kind of was last week.
Yeah.
What happened? How'd it go?
It was a blast. So this was Jake's second race, getting to be there with the dialed van and dialed tent, which has been awesome. We had at the duathlon a couple weeks ago, which I did not race, but just hung out the whole time and got to cheer everybody on. Well, we had probably 10 or 12 people, I think.
About that, yeah.
And then 10 or 12 again this time. So it's actually might have a little bit more.
I think we had 13 or
13 or 14, yeah.
somewhere in there. So thank you,
Yeah.
Lance. Ooh, LaCroix too.
Which is just awesome.
And it's
I mean,
cold.
Right out
Oh
of the
yeah,
fridge.
this is chilly. Ooh, I like that. The lime.
Sweet.
But yeah, it's just exciting to see that much orange out there and just everybody out racing again. I mean, it's been so because we did duathlons before, but this was the first local triathlon.
Right.
Yeah.
I think since I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure since 2019.
I think you're correct.
I'm almost positive on that this was the first inside of Vancouver, Portland area triathlon since 2019.
So a little funny tidbit. Like I brought out the team tents and I
Yeah.
brought out the team bike racks and all that other stuff. And I had to drive down to meet Chris Weirman to get those and whatnot.
Yeah.
They've been sitting in his barn since November of 2019.
There you go. That was
They hadn't been used since the last cyclocross race, or at least
Yep.
one of the tents because I had the other one. But long story short, they still had cyclocross all over them.
That's
They were
hilarious.
still muddy.
A little dirty.
Well,
Yeah.
But they're all good.
Nationals in Tacoma was muddy and nasty
There
for
you
several
go.
days.
Well,
Was all that? Oh, I guess it was up there for that, huh?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
Well,
I remember that, and that seems like forever ago right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So just being able to see the tents out there, see a transition zone, have to put on a wetsuit for a local race again. Luckily for me, the race is at Frenchman's Bar, which is literally a bike ride from my house. So Josh came over in the morning, Cassie drove the car down, and me and Josh rode our bikes for our warm-up to the race, which was awesome. And had a blast. It was, local racing here, as I've gotten some messages over last week, it just got fast. We got some very, very fast times at this race, and I lost, but I am fine. It was, don't get me wrong, I
Evan,
I am
you're-
obsessed with winning. I
You're
am
defending
very
champion.
mad that
Are you
I
defending
did.
champion?
Of the PDX tried, no, Josh is because there was a virtual race.
Okay.
So we joked that
right.
Josh was the virtual champion. He was virtually the champion.
the last in-person winner was a guy from Everyman Jack. I remember standing there taking pictures.
Devin
of that.
Folk, I think. Yep.
There you go.
Yep. Who I'll tell you what though, if Ben Snodgrass is fast and Devin Volk are fast, but if both of them had been there on
Ben did not race.
No. Ben
Yeah.
Ben did not race. that would have been. I think Ben's recovering from some injuries and getting back to it now. Been biking very well though, but yeah, that would have been even a faster race. I mean, it was very, very, very fast. The guy who won is a 21-year-old named Andy Kruger, who used to be on the Strive Triathlon team, which is a juniors team that operates out of the West Coast, or did. And I'll tell you what, Andy is fast. And this kid went to Queens College, which is unequivocally the best triathlon program in America. That's not a debate anymore. Sorry, Colorado. You're not even close anymore.
Queens College, not in
North Carolina.
It's in North Carolina. Okay.
North Carolina, yeah. And he came out to play. He took his pro card this last year too, so he's coming off a half Ironman race in St. George, and I'm going to get to race him in Des Moines. So it was a lot of fun to get to race him. To give a little race recap, as we were just joking before this, I lost the race by the time I left the water. So I come out.
You left the water, stepped foot in the water.
Two and yeah. As soon as I stepped foot in the water. The funny thing for me is I actually thought I had a pretty darn good swim for myself. Yeah, I got to be realistic. I'm not going to be on Andy Kruger's feet. Andy Kruger went 24 mid for 2K at St. George. He's swimming with like a front pack pro field. Yeah, very, very, very good swimmer. One of the fastest in the college game and going to be one of the fastest in the pro game. And so I came out of, T1 basically already with second place as the goal at that point. But
so he beat you by a couple minutes?
2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes out of the water.
Yep.
And then you had a little mishap.
I'll tell you what.
In T1.
Man, dizziness is not fun. And when your balance is not good and you're trying to take a wetsuit off and you fall over, it's not going to make for a fast T1.
Right.
Oh, just embarrassingly bad. For coaching juniors, I need to tell them, like, watch this video. This is how you don't do T1. Make sure you don't do this.
You came out of the water. You get to your spot. You're trying to pull your wetsuit off. And you fell over.
And I fell over.
Okay.
It was trying to get the left leg off, go to step on it like you're supposed to, and go to kick the leg, and stepped on it and immediately fell over. While trying to get it off still, got the shoes on, got on the bike, and, put that one behind me. We're like, all right, that was not the ideal start.
That's fantastic.
But got on the bike and actually felt, it's been just week by week. There was no taper going into this race. So my body's pretty used to now once we hit the weekend. It's like, okay, you're doing a lot of sweet spot. I'm pretty locked into a certain wattage right now, to be honest. Like 310 watts seems to be what I put out for anywhere between an hour to 2 hours now.
You can hold that for that
I'll just hold that in the
Fantastic.
aero position for a long time.
Yeah.
So I think I was pushing a little bit harder. I know once I caught John Brenson, who's a very fast swim biker, I kind of led us through the rest to try to reel in Andy. And in our heads, to me and John, I didn't think we were making up any time to Andy, but apparently we made up about a minute to him. So I put about a minute into Andy through the bike. And then actually it would have been like closer to 45, 50 seconds, I think. We had basically an even T2, and then he had a great run, and I was only able to put in maybe 30 seconds into him on the run.
So you did outbike him, outran him. But
and lost it in the water.
But you could not make up the 3 minutes that you came out of
Bike
T2.
and run for show, swim for dough, apparently. I didn't know that. I had no idea that's how the saying went, but apparently that's how the saying goes. So, but yeah, it was a super nice kid. He's like 21. God, he's so young and already fast. So I'll be racing him in Des Moines in 2 weeks. I hope that and everybody's going to laugh hearing this because I'm the youngest person on this. I hope my old man strength gets me to where I can run him down towards the end of that race. I'm planning on trying to be the hunter all day, because I know that I'm not the hunter in the water, so I need to get off and have a good bike run and hopefully land in the pro field where I hope I can.
Cassie need to get having some kids, get those dad watts rolling.
I know, right?
Dad watts rolling.
I need that extra 10 watts. I for sure need that right now.
Oh my gosh.
Nate Scott and I are working on a song called Dad Watts right now.
That's awesome.
We were singing it as we were going in the flogging ride this past week. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. That is hilarious. But yeah, it was just a blast getting
well
out
done.
there and seeing everybody.
Josh ended up fourth, Joshua Monda.
Yep, Josh was fourth and flew off the bike. He's been running so well. Ran
fast.
35 flat off the bike. Just awesome. He's gonna tear apart Coeur d'Alene here in a bit. Yeah.
Is Coeur d'Alene the full or
Full.
he's doing the full?
Full.
Okay.
Yep.
That's exciting.
Oh yeah. That's right up his and John's alley. So him and John will both be going to Coeur d'Alene. I would not be surprised if you see both those guys in the top 8.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think Josh will be podium. I think John will be
I would just love to see that.
between 5 and 8, I think is where John will lie.
For those keeping notes at home and want to know what's going on in the world of Evan Price Pro Triathlete, what does the rest of the season look like for you? What are some of the things still on the calendar for you?
Yeah, so I'm going to race Des Moines in 2 weeks, which is really my like prime A race for the entire 2020-2021 season. Like
That is a half, a 70.3.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, 2K swim, 56-mile bike, and a half marathon run. So
How are you liking that?
I like the course. It needs to be wetsuit legal. If it's not, that's okay, but I will be slower in the water then. And the bike is rolling, which I like. I like a little bit, I like some elevation gain in there. And the run is pretty flat, so I'm very excited about that. And it's a very long straightaway type run. So it's not like Galveston where we're turning every half mile. It's going to be very, very flat. And I just got a message from a guy I'll be racing named Tyson Weiland, who is a absolute stud on the run, and I'll be racing there. And he was saying, he's like, yeah, there's going to be some guys there looking to roll on the run. So hopefully I come off with a couple of those guys, and we're just going to we're going to go for broke. If I end up having to walk at some point, that's fine because
This is your A race, you bury yourself.
A race and you bury yourself, and I got very few chances in my life to go as fast as I in my head would like to go one day, and this is going to be one of those chances. So.
You go full Alistair Brownlee and just
if you
run yourself
if you do
until
it great,
you pass
if you blow
out.
yourself up. There you go. At least you said you blew yourself up. So,
Are there any big names there that you can share with us?
yeah, I think a couple. Rudy Von Berg was on the start list, but he's not going to be there. Matt Hansen, I think, is injured, so he's not going to be there. Sam Appleton will be there, who's very fast. And there's a couple other names. Sam Appleton's the big one I'm remembering. I'll remember a few others. And then there's it's a huge start list, and there's a lot of mid-pack guys.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love looking at the list and being like, this is not a world championship field there. It's not 20 guys who are all going to be going and racing in Kona and, ITU world championships. It's a bunch of guys that are kind of quick, but not that fast.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a good field to race against, definitely. 50, 60 guys.
That's exciting.
A lot of guys. Yeah. It'll be exciting.
Wasn't there was a half Ironman in Hawaii on the Big Island?
There was, yeah.
Yes. I think I only knew that because I have a...
Lisa Worms raced there.
Oh, she did?
Mm-hmm.
She
Yep.
went out. That's nice. I know.
Yep.
There's a guy that I'm buddies with on Strava that he's 55, and he won the 55 age group.
Oh,
there.
nice.
Mark Pietro Fessa, I think.
Good for him, because that was a competitive amateur field, because I think that race has Kona qualifying slots,
He
actually.
got a slot.
Nice, yeah. That's one of the few half Ironmans that has Kona
Yep.
slots.
It might have been one slot for his.
I
but-
think it was,
but
yeah.
he won it. He went
That's
like
awesome.
4:56. He's 55 years old.
That's moving.
He went 4:56.
That's like becoming people's goals now, is how long can you stay under 5? It's like there's guys in their 60s now I know who are going, like Rudy Von Berg's dad is 60, he's in his mid-60s and still going sub 5, well under sub 5, yeah.
Just out of curiosity, did you catch the name of the guy, the old gentleman who...
The 93-year-old?
Yesterday was his birthday. He turned 94 yesterday.
I have no idea who he is, but he's amazing.
94.
He
He's
was
amazing.
out there racing.
Doing a triathlon.
Was it the try or the do?
94. That's a great question.
It was one of the two. But either
Yeah.
way, 94.
Yeah.
And he's like, I may not have beat anyone, but I sure outlived everyone else.
Yep.
Something along those lines.
There was
that's
also
awesome.
one of the fastest swims of the day. I think she was either the second or third overall swim. We're including men and women. I think she was 60. And she came swimming by
I was gonna
Cassie.
say.
She was 24 mid. She outswam me by 20 seconds.
Oh, wow.
60-year-old
And
woman.
she's 60.
That woman could.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That woman could smoke most triathletes, period.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's
Pretty good
amazing.
showing.
Yeah. It was we got a lot of fast local racing, which is just awesome to see.
How about you, Hep?
My week sucked. We don't need to talk about it. I had a rough week. Last week I did talk about that I was going to go to Mount Tabor and race my road bike, and it was a very short race. Mount Tabor, super happy to have road racing back in the Portland area.
Sure.
Mount Tabor is it's more like a crit, but with a hill in it. The course is 1.3 miles long.
Yeah.
And my race was actually only 5 laps, so literally 17-minute race. And I raced the 50-plus field. I had a couple teammates in there that I was trying to do some work for. I got dropped on lap 3. And then consequently thought, okay, I suck at road racing. I'm never racing my road bike again. Why am I even on this bike?
Well, when was the last time you road raced?
It's been a couple years. It's
Yeah.
been years. Yeah. I know.
For everybody, yeah.
Man, if
And
I was
so-
jumping a cross race, I'd be dropped out the back in 2 seconds. That's
There's kind of a longer climb in it. It's like a climb and a descent, and a climb and a descent. That's what the whole course is. You would be great at it, Jake.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, I had like 10 seconds of bad decision making, and I lost contact, and that was it.
yeah.
Off
I mean,
the
it's
back.
a 17-minute race.
That's it.
so,
It was a
yeah.
17-minute race.
Well, part of it is that in the 50 plus, like you guys were the only ones running a race that slow, but the premise is they want you guys to stick around and do the 40 plus race as well.
Correct.
Right?
It's like an hour later, and you can
Oh,
recover
gotcha.
enough to do the 40-plus race.
Oh, yeah, the 50-plus race is a warm-up then at that
Yes.
point. You can't crank the engine for 17
run,
minutes like that.
Yeah, they run quite a few races too, so they have to squeeze all that in. And
Yep.
I just don't understand why though they don't maybe take a lap away from everybody and like build you guys
Make
up a
it
little bit more,
longer.
because if someone's going to stick around, they're going to stick around regardless to do that second race.
Yep.
17 minutes, that's just way too short. But it's not
pretty
my
short.
race
That's
to
shorter
promote.
than a crit.
Yes. Oh, yeah. You normally crits, even for my age group, are like 35 minutes or 40
at
minutes.
least. I mean, yeah.
So,
Anyway, to each
anyway.
their own.
Bercampus did pretty well. Matt Bercampus went out there and raced it.
He raced in the
4 or 5, I think.
no
Or 5.
there was a 5 field and a 4 field. He raced
Gotcha.
in the 5 field and he took 5th or 6th.
Six. That was
He
his
took
first.
6th.
Yeah.
That was his
First
first race.
Road
Yes.
I know. That
First
shocked
time-
me once he told me that.
And
that
it was a
his
big
first-
field. There was like, what, 40 or 50 people in it?
50 people in that
Yeah,
5 race.
that's
It was the
fantastic.
biggest
Watch
field
out for
of
Matt.
the night.
Matt's going to be fast.
Yeah.
Matt is built like a climber for one, for
Yeah.
sure, but rides his bike very fast.
Shabadoo did good.
Yeah, so I was there to work for Shabadoo.
Sure.
So my plan,
job.
him and Hatfield, yeah, I totally failed. My whole plan was
Good job, Chris Frim.
I was only trying to like cover moves for those two guys. I had no like personal, goals in this race at all, other than to help Hatfield and Hannell, and I blew it.
You've raced like 100 times already this year. I think it's okay to blow it every once in a while.
I've raced 17 times this year already.
And a lot of it was on a mountain bike. So.
Yep. So I just blew it. But Shabadoo took 3rd, and I think Hatfield was 6th. So they did well. I'm the only reason that that Chris Hannell, Dr. Shabadoo, the only reason he lost the race is because he miscounted laps. He thought there was one more lap to go.
Were they ringing bells for like the preems in the final lap?
Yes.
He's hard of hearing. What is he, like 50 or whatever? Man,
That or
50.
I
The
don't
hearing-
want to get upgraded.
the hearing's starting to go. Yeah.
He's also cautious about. He doesn't want to get upgraded to a 2, and
Well, I don't blame him though.
I don't blame him either.
It's a whole different training regimen. Granted, he's got the horsepower, but he's not going to have any teammates to race with in there right now.
No, he
So
would not.
We don't have anybody. Like I would have been.
He'd be great regardless. I don't care what
So
put
he-
that guy in. He's
I-
going to be fast.
He might have sabotaged himself on purpose. I could see himself doing that.
Also, I'm going to start firing shots towards Dr. Shabadoo here. As he needs to get on that time trial bike and go after a couple KOMs. I need a
working
new
on it.
target out there.
I think he's working on it.
I know.
He's,
I might regret those words because if he goes out there and puts a minute into me in one of these, I'm gonna be like, "That's not good." This is.
They did go out and they did the Oregon Grand Fondo. That was on
I
Saturday.
forgot he did that.
Saturday.
Yeah.
Him and Hatfield were trying to win the 50 plus
Win the group
division, and they ended up taking 2nd and 3rd. They got beat by another guy. I think it was 117 miles, and they did it in under 5 hours.
Yeah. They
So-
averaged like 21 mid miles per hour.
Yes.
For
And
107.
where did they finish overall? I mean, they still had to be pretty high up on the
11th. I think.
gosh.
I think Hannell was 11th, and Hatfield was like 13th or something like that. So they were up there.
Good on you, boys.
Yeah. So they were smoking it. Rest of my week, I even missed the flogging ride. I ended up in a swirling vortex of yard work and mistimed my finish, and did not finish my yard work in time to make it to the flogging ride. So I didn't make that, but I did get to go out and ride with Jake and Sean a little bit on what day was that? Sunday?
Saturday.
See, I'm totally.
Yesterday was Sunday,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Lansing's
that's
a
right.
recovery week.
I am not.
You need a recovery week.
I am like, I am I'm feeling crappy about myself right now. I feel like I'm hitting my mid-season slump, which I tend to do. I need to just chill my brain.
Take some time, just do zone 2. Zone 2 riding.
Well, I got to race this Saturday.
That's not zone 2.
It was funny because so Sean and I, we do our annual crash anniversary ride.
It's the crash anniversary.
So it was the 3-year anniversary of us getting hit by that car. And we went out, we did that same route. And Lance asked me the day before, he's like, hey, what you doing tomorrow? I'm like, well, I told him, and he's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, you want to come? He's like, yeah, I'll come for sure. And I didn't hear anything else from him, so I just assumed that he was going to be there. And then I ping him like, hey, you still coming? He's like, yep. And then I get a text from him, and he's nearby, and he's in my driveway when I come outside to go ride because I wasn't quite sure where he was at. It was, I don't know. Anyway, long story short, he wanted to come do the ride. And then he's telling me how tired he is, but he's going to go do the ride with us. But what he failed to tell everybody else is that he'd already done 40 miles by the time he met up with us. So he finished with 80 miles on the day.
I rode 85 miles, with 6,000 feet of climbing, which is a big ride for me.
Yeah.
I haven't done a lot of big, long rides. Yeah.
Yeah, and riding with Sean
give
Martin right
yourself
now,
some time
too.
just to do those type of rides. I mean, just do some
haven't.
big zone 2 rides. Stay away from racing for a second.
Well, it's a problem. I go with Jake and Sean.
It's a
and
race.
Sean's freaking... I got dropped on every climb. Let's
Sean's
just
always
put it that way.
sneaky fit. Sean's every single time I've ever heard Sean Martin say I'm not in good shape, it is 100% a lie, and he's in really good sneaky fitness.
I invite myself on this ride with Jake and Sean.
To get dropped.
And then they had to wait for me. When they were halfway up Gibson, and they totally turned it off so I could catch back on. I catch on and I'm like, you guys, just go. I invited myself, so just don't let me hold. But no, they didn't. They just stayed with me. And at the top of the next climb, they waited for me at the top.
Hey, happens mid-season,
I
man.
suck at road biking.
For 10 more days, probably, you're going to suck at road biking, and then you'll click in. That's
All right, let's wrap this thing up real quick.
Sorry.
I rode my bike every single day, and I think I'm at 291 days in a row or something like that.
closing on the 1 year.
Yeah, we're closing on the 300 days in a row, the triple century. And we will be rolling in that last 65 days until the middle of August. And what's funny is everybody's going to want to do that dialed 100 again. And Sean and I are continuing on this thing, and I 100% blame this on him. I would have been perfectly content to stop one day after Hepler stopped.
I stopped. They refused to stop.
Yeah.
Oh, I would have stopped right then. Yeah.
And Sean just wanted to keep going. He's like, you know what? We're not too far away from 300, and next thing you know, it's 365 and whatever. But so we're going to end up doing this whole 1 year ride thing.
Yeah.
The day that 1 year ends would be the day after the next dialed 100 starts, the 100 days of consecutive riding. So it finishes on Thanksgiving. So what am I going to end up doing? Am I not going to do that with everybody, or am I going to get suckered into riding another 100-day block?
You're going to do
Another 99 days.
465 days in a row.
It'll be 464, but
My longest
464.
streak in the last 3 years is 5 days. It's my longest streak on the bike.
Congratulations,
5
Evan.
days.
It's not
You
smart.
stink.
5 days. Consistency.
Anyway, so we had that ride. We did the Tuesday night gravel ride was fun.
Yes, but
That
we
was
talked about that last week because we didn't record till Wednesday.
Right, yeah.
I was going to bring it up, but I remembered we already talked about
Right
it.
on the beach was fun.
We rode on the beach.
We're going to do that again this
We are
week.
going to do that
Yes.
again. Yeah.
And then other than that, we had our
was fun.
flogging ride that was a blast. And we had a really strong A group, and I was told that the B group was hotter than they've ever been. So it was fun watching them. And we had a good sized C and D group, and saw some more new faces out there. And I think we were just shy of about 50 people in total.
Nice.
So it was another fun and successful ride. No mishaps, no melees. Everybody just
Good.
went out and had fun. The weather was great, and we're looking forward to doing it again this week.
Nice.
Good times.
Very
Cool.
good.
We're going to leave all of the other stuff, the Patreon drawing and the lead out news, which I'm really looking forward to talking about that because I'm hoping we're going to talk a little bit about the Unbound stuff from this past weekend.
I have lots to talk about Unbound, but
Okay.
we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. And then we'll finish up with the one last thing and all that other fun stuff. But today, this week, right now, we're going to talk about cramps.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people talking to me about their race experiences and their training. Just in the last couple of weeks, I've talked to quite a few people that are talking about cramping issues that they're dealing with, and they're talking to me about their remedies and what they're trying to do to solve their problems. And a lot of times I think they might be not misguided, but maybe just a little off base in terms of why it is that they're cramping. And we wanted to get into that a little bit. So we're going to lean on Mr. Evan Price over here. Mr. Dr. Price, physical therapy professional.
I am no dietitian or primary care physician, so let's get that off the table
I
first.
have some thoughts on this as well.
But I do see muscles a lot. So
I got lots of experience.
and I do coach people who get cramps frequently.
Yeah.
So
the common thing for a lot of people for many years is, oh, I cramped, I was dehydrated, or I need to eat more bananas, or I need to
potassium and magnesium.
and I need to take more salt pills.
Yeah.
What do you think about all this stuff, Evan Price?
Did you know a potato has more potassium than a banana does?
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
There's just
Tastes
one
better.
thing to start with. So also, if anybody was wondering, original cramping research done with hydration issues was sponsored by Gatorade. So anybody who says I need to drink more and hydrate more, just know that all of that information you're getting from is sponsored research.
I'm going to ask you some questions, Evan,
Yeah.
because from what I understand in my own research, there aren't exactly sure what the mechanism is that causes cramping.
You are right. Yes.
It can be a multitude of things.
So
there are multiple answers. So that's the first thing. Is
Right.
if anybody ever tells you, hey, I'm doing this one thing because I heard somebody say this is the primary reason of my cramps, you already need to say that's probably wrong because there's multiple reasons.
There's four main reasons that I can think of that people tend to cramp. One is dehydration. That's what everybody thinks right off the bat. I'm cramping because I didn't drink enough. The next is fatigue.
Yeah.
Your muscle is just
A specific type of fatigue, though, which we will
right.
talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
The third would be
I'm going to say undertraining.
yes. Okay.
That's not everybody's case, but in some cases,
Undertraining.
Undertraining.
And the fourth is
Underexposure, also.
Yeah. The fourth reason for cramping could be neurological issues.
Yes, absolutely.
Or just nerve issues. Period. Right.
Yep.
Is that? Am I on the right
Ooh,
track?
that's really good. I like those four. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd put sleep and recovery into there too, but that's yeah, I would say 5. Sleep and recovery, I think, goes into there too.
Let's run around the table. When was the last time you dealt with cramps while in competition or training?
I mean, like, I've dealt with a couple the last 2 blocks of training where it's like once on a Saturday, be getting a little bit, but the last time I had any actual issues with cramping, like real cramping issues, was actually at it was at St. George in 18.
Hot.
Yeah, and that more, I bring up, when I talk about cramps, I bring up that specific situation because I know that I had the wrong ideas in my head as to why that happened. And the way that I shifted my training, I think, cured a lot of that for me. But that's not the same for everybody. So when I say, like, hey, this worked for me, that's an N of 1. That's a study size of 1.
Yeah.
Jake's situation's different. I think Jake is somebody, just from his history, knowing how his training goes, how dedicated, at least in the time I've known Jake, he has been to diet and making sure that, like, his hydration's not terrible, and that sleep recovery, I think, goes into Jake's issues too. But I do think there are certain types of athletes that are more genetically predisposed to being exposed to cramping. Here's something that is not well researched. I do think it's more muscle-bound athletes. I think it's generally more mesomorphic builds versus more
Interesting.
ectomorphic builds, which would be me.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Purely because your muscles require more magnesium, potassium, all these things that we talk about than mine do. I mean, I have smaller muscle girth. That's a simple equation. I do think if you're putting out higher watt efforts over and over again, which I'm not capable of, you're going to be more predisposed to cramps.
Yep.
Because we're talking about issues peripherally at the muscle. If that muscle has to produce more force frequently, you're going to walk that line finer. Yeah. Definitely. Guys like Nate Scott, I think, is a great example too of that. Mike Guyvan. You're thinking, I mean, Mike, Jake, and Nate are the 3 better cyclists on our team that I know have this issue.
Yeah.
What do all 3 of them have in common? A lot of muscle on their legs.
Muscle.
Ton of
Yes.
muscle on their
Yep.
legs. Yeah. So what I do think gets way over, and here's the thing with whenever we're talking about people trying to drive that it's purely a nutritional or diet or hydration issue, is that's usually for some companies financial gain.
Correct.
When you're like, I'm not going to say any specific company because I all think that this is very important stuff to consider too. But like if X company says, hey, we have found the perfect formula for you not to cramp.
It completely depends on your sweat rate
It's
and your
just
sodium
ridiculous.
burn rate.
Also,
Yeah.
you could take the most novice endurance athlete, give them a perfect formula for sleep recovery, diet, nutrition, hydration, send them up a hill 10 times. They're going to cramp. I don't care.
Yes.
Their system has not been exposed to that. Neurologically, they're going to be overwhelmed. and their muscles are going to fatigue regardless of how much magnesium's in the system.
Right.
Like, you have to have the exposure to that type of effort. And I know that because in St. George, I went all out on that bike going up a hill. I had not trained that way, not trained to that level of the where I wanted to race in that race. Come off the bike after a 10-mile downhill. I was hydrating fine. I drank as much as I could, ate as much as I could. First 5Ks uphill, I cramp at the top of that hill. That was not me. Like, in my head, I was like, man, this is altitude and heat and no hydration. I got back home and looked at my train and said, like, nope, that was because you didn't train hard enough. That was bottom line for me. I did not expose my system to that type of effort.
Overworking those muscles in that moment, they were not ready for that, and they
ready
cramped.
for it.
Yeah, correct.
I could have been at sea level with 60-degree beautiful breeze, and it was probably still going to happen on that same course.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I'll agree with all of this that you just said. And a perfect example is like a lot of the races that I was doing on the road, like the early season stuff. I just wasn't starting my high intensity, high interval, and having to repeat that over and over again, the exposure early enough in the off season. And we get to those early races, and even some of them where they weren't that much climbing and I'm cramping. And it's just because my muscle, the neuromuscular intervention there wasn't quite ready for that.
Right.
Those attacks, you know, like you could do it a few times, but when you burn all of those matches and you're like on attack number
for more and more matches.
10, 11, 12, and then you're getting down to that last like 2 or 3 miles and you're trying to set yourself up, and all of a sudden you feel that little precursor, that little twinge, and then all of a sudden it gets tight, and next thing you know, just bam, it's done. It fires. It's the worst.
You could be straight syringing magnesium into you and chugging
still
Red
happen.
Bull. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, it's happened to me twice this year in races already. Once was at the Sister Stampede, which was just last weekend. It was hot out. I had one 16-ounce bottle on my bike, and it was almost a 2-hour race, like an hour and 50-minute race for me. That was not enough. And I was burying myself to catch Scott Carroll, and I started to cramp, and I actually had to back off because I knew it was going to go full-blown if I didn't go too hard. So I'm pretty sure that was a dehydration issue. The other time it happened was at the Gorge Gravel Grinder. I was 3.5 hours into the race. I can't even remember, but when I hit the top of that final hill and I was trying to catch a guy in front of me, again, I started to cramp. But again, I think those are fatigue issues.
Yeah.
That one was a fatigue issue.
Yeah.
Yep.
The other thing is,
Most of us forget to drink too once we're fatigued. So
Correct.
this is where, yes, hydration. Like anybody listening to this and they're like, no, I've read enough studies to know that hydration plays roles. Like, absolutely, in a lab setting, if you exhaust somebody's,
if you're dehydrated,
like, I mean, if you throw somebody's sodium, potassium, magnesium balance all the way off, bad things are going to happen. Yeah. But
I skipped an aid station at Gorge Gravel Grinder because I didn't want to stop. I wanted to keep my momentum going, and I was low on water and dehydrated because of that.
Yep.
The other thing is, and this goes back to the neurological reason for cramping, I get cramps every single night when I sleep.
Every single night? Like
Every single night.
Yeah.
Just in my right leg. And this is I get them in my right calf and I get them in my right hamstring. And it's not because I'm working that leg harder than my left leg. It's because
doing leg races that day.
It's because I have a nerve injury on my right side that's causing issues in my right leg. And so I get cramps every single night. And that is purely neurological. That is from nerve injury.
Yeah.
And it trying to those nerves trying to regenerate on that side. It's all from that. And those muscles will fire, and I have to get out of bed to stop them. It happens to me every single night, and has for 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't get them every
not
single
fun.
night, but I get them a couple times a week. I'll usually wake up in the middle of the night, and I'll be dealing with a leg cramp. As a matter of fact, on Saturday night, I'm trying to get to bed because I got to get up at 4:30 in the morning to go out for the triathlon stuff to help you guys out. And it was like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, leg cramp, had to stand up, had to stretch it out. And I'm like, I don't need to be doing this right now. I need to be sleeping. So that's a major nuisance. And I can always tell, like, when
that's
my
one of the biggest catch-21s, too. You're like, rest and recovery helps cramping, also disturbs sleep. So
And I notice when I increase my training volumes, it will be more frequent.
You start to feel it more,
and I had it Friday night as well. And that was after doing the fog hat ride. That's a social slow ride.
Super easy, chill.
And it's just because my volume is up, and that's my body's way of saying, hey, your
Reaching.
volume is up. We're going to...
closing in on capacity.
Exactly.
Yep.
So...
Yeah, mine isn't from volume. It's from nerve injury.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I think it's just important for everybody to realize that it's, you can Read as many Google articles as you want about cramping, but understand that each situation is going to be different. All that cramping is your peripheral or your central system trying to communicate a message to you, is it? And it's usually a sealing message. What I mean by a sealing message is I tell some of my patients when you get sealing symptoms, which means let's say I got patellar tendonitis or something, and every time I run, my knee hurts. Okay, that means that, well, not every time you run. Let's say that once your volume picks up, your knee starts to hurt. That's a sealing symptom. So that means, okay, you're reaching the capacity of what your tendon system wants to deal with. Cramps are, you're reaching the capacity of what your neuromuscular system wants to deal with, that relationship between that nerve communication and that muscle. So you need to listen to those symptoms, but you also need to change then how you're training. So if you know, hey, every time I go and race early season and I'm doing big bomb watt efforts, I get cramps. All right, that means maybe during the winter, you should do that more often then. You need to expose your system in a calculated way when you can on the trainer.
Couldn't agree more.
As opposed to get to the first race and then, I know because I hear people say this all the time, like, man, I cramped on the run. I'm like, okay, when was the last time you did a brick workout? Last race season. Like, all right.
Bingo.
There you go. I was like, no, I'm pretty sure it was my hydration.
No,
like,
it's
I'm
a
pretty sure it wasn't
fatigue
your
issue.
hydration. Because I always tell the story. I know this is an extreme example, but when the Nike project did the Breaking 2 originally, they had 3 runners, and I've talked about it on this show before. Tadase was one of them, a Eritrean runner. For a period held the half marathon world record. When they brought him in for testing, they asked him what his hydration plan was. And he told them he has never drank during a run in his life.
What?
Never drank on a run. Never in a race, never in a run. And here's what I loved. Nike thought, and there's very smart guys on that program. I love how I think they learned something from Tadase. Because in Nike's head, they were like, awesome. We've got the ticket that's going to get this guy to running fast marathons.
Oh, you're going to run even faster.
All
we're
we got to do
hydrate
is
you.
hydrate you. Nothing could go wrong. This is great. Just plug this man's system who's been running for 33 years off of no drinks. And if we give him enough of our magic formula, this guy's going to win. Nope. Blew up. Kipchoge beat him. Yeah. There you go. I mean, that's bottom line is that guy's system had developed
Yes.
to where over an hour effort or over a little over an hour effort, that man could rev his engine at levels that nobody else can in the world. And it adapted to not needing water because what was he not doing as a kid? Drinking while he was running. So, yeah.
Wow.
It's just one to show that, like, I'm sure that man has been very dehydrated during races. There's even studies that they do on East African runners that show their performance increased under slight dehydration. It's one of my favorite studies to point out to people who are, like, obsessed with the dehydration for cramps. And that shows whatever you expose your system to, it's going to adapt to. But if you make a quick, big change, whether that's, I'm going to go on this long ride and not drink water, you're like,
Right.
all right, or drink any electrolyte supplement,
Right.
you're like, probably going to cramp. Or I'm going to drink way too much on this ride. Or I'm going to do a couple 1,000-watt bombs, even though I haven't exposed myself to that. Right. Expect that your peripheral or central system is going to communicate with you. And that communication can be a cramp.
Fun.
Yep.
Well,
I'm just talking to my past self when I was
But
dying
that
in
being
races.
said, how should I say this? What percentage of the time do you think that people are experiencing cramps because of dehydration? Is that
That's a good question.
Is that usually the main culprit, or is it just too variable to say that that's what it is? It's more often fatigue than it is dehydration.
I'd say the top 3 are rest and recovery is bad. Your hydration wasn't appropriate enough for your sweat loss during the race or effort. And the third, which I actually think, so I'd put those 2 and 3.
Okay.
I think the number 1 is that you were exposing your system outside of what you've trained.
Fatigue.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Hydration's close. I mean, I would say it's 2 or 3, but I do truly believe, and I'm sure somebody will sit here and say you're completely wrong, which is fine. But I do truly believe that fatigue and not training for the exposure you just put yourself under is the primary driver. Yeah.
Interesting.
Which is why I think a lot of people get it early season. I mean, that to me makes more sense because I hear it in triathlon all the time.
Yeah.
People's first runs, unless you're the 4 of the guys I was racing at PDX this last weekend, where all of us have been training for like months and months and months and months, expecting a race, training purely for races, which did not happen.
And they never happened. Right.
So what else do we want to talk about this then? Are we just going to debunk that? Do you guys want to run through more myths that you've heard of in time or wives' tales that are going to solve this?
Compression sleeves.
I have
the guys rest with
you know another
compression
myth
sleeves.
about dehydration is if there's crusty salt on my jersey or my race jersey or on my cycling jersey, that means I'm dehydrated.
Yeah.
Do you think that's true?
It means you shed a lot of salt.
That's correct.
It just means you're a certain type of sweater. In my opinion. Yeah.
So it's pretty common in drier climates that you're going to have salt or crusty stuff on your jersey if you do a ride for more than an hour, period.
It's also because in drier conditions, the water will leave quicker.
It evaporates
quicker.
quicker.
It evaporates quicker, so you leave the salt. Yeah.
It does not necessarily mean that you...
Human conditions a little bit different.
Yes, it doesn't
Water's going to
necessarily
stay
mean-
on your skin because it's not evaporating as quickly. Yeah.
The only difference to that would be if you were doing a triathlon and the swim was in the ocean and you're wearing the same jersey on the bike.
You have salt all
You're
over
going to
your bike.
have salt from the ocean on your jersey.
And then you think that you're sweating
you
that
think
all out.
you're
It's like, no,
sweating
that
too
was,
much.
Kona.
So that could be an issue too. But anytime you're more than a couple hours in drier climates, you're going to have crusty stuff on your. You know, people have different sweat rates and people have different sodium levels in their sweat as well, and that's it's not a really easy thing to discover what your sweat rate is. You have to
just follow Lionel Sanders' channel on trying to figure that out. My God, that guy has been over the last 4 years been obsessing with Gatorade over his sweat rate.
trying to figure it out.
Oh, just obsessing over it.
You have to weigh yourself before the ride, weigh yourself after the ride, weigh what you would have drank, and weigh what you would have peed out.
Yep.
And then the difference to all that is what your sweat rate is. It's really
And
complicated.
then figuring out the sodium would take a lab situation.
It has to be a lab situation to figure out. Some people
And I don't know. I think there's too many. I always think whenever you're taking one athlete and doing 1 day of training and trying to extrapolate numbers out over a long period of time, the amount of variables you have to think about going into that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, where's their fitness right now? How'd they sleep last night?
Right.
How'd they sleep this last week? What'd their training look like going into this? What's their mental state right now? What was their motivation? What was the amount of what was the wind conditions? The amount of things you have to consider that, and it just sometimes we get too numbers obsessed. We want an answer. So we want
Especially
that
triathletes.
infinite exactly. We want that infinite formula. You ever seen the infinite nutrition where it's like plug in your sweat rates, if you're a salty sweater, if you're this or that, and we'll give you your formula.
everybody thinks they're a salty sweater because they see salt on their jersey.
Exactly. And I'm like, here's the bottom line is when your actual baseline research is already quite combative and there's a lot of debate already. How can you be taking that level, then take an experiment on a person that would be highly variable, even at the most generous IRBs? Even though the most generous research boards would call it very, very variable. How can you take that and then say, here is your formula for staying hydrated? Money, obviously. I understand that. It just makes you money because it sounds cool. And people are like, no, I like following science here, and I'm going to make sure that my hydration plan is exactly what science would say. Instead of saying, hey, this is changes in fluid. You need to listen to your body, period.
Okay, let me ask you something then. Because this is so variable, what is Evan? What are
the pillars?
No. What is your hydration plan on the bike? What do you do on the bike?
So my hydration plan is not perfectly scientific by any means. It's what I train to. So instead of thinking of chicken or the egg, I decided to go, I'm going to come up with what I think is a reasonable hydration approach. I'm going to train my body to accept that hydration approach.
Okay.
Instead of the other way around. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I train for long blocks going into races so that I can continue to expose my system to this. So for example, on Saturdays, typically Saturdays, I will do some sweet spot efforts. Let's say it's 4 by 15 minutes. It's going to be about a 2-hour, 15-minute bike. I will take in 1 Red Bull and then 2 things of Tailwind with 1 scoop in.
1 scoop per bottle.
1 scoop per bottle, 2 bottles, and a Red Bull. So that's 3 drinks, basically.
You add the Red Bull to your bottles, or you drink it
I just drink
beforehand?
the Red Bull just while, because these are always on the trainer. I'm always doing erg
Oh,
mode on
gotcha.
these.
Okay.
These are always, not always erg mode, but usually erg mode.
So you're training your body to be adapted to Red Bull. Are you using Red Bull during races, though?
Yeah, I use it at the beginning of runs now. I don't
So
use
when
it on
you
the
come out of
bike as much.
transition, you'll slam some Red Bull.
You have one in your
I
transition.
grab it and go. Yeah, except for an Olympic distance, I don't take in. I take in like 2 sips on the bike during Olympic distance.
Gotcha.
So then I will make sure I finish Red Bull before I go on the run. I bring no water on the runs, and I will do 12, 13-mile tempo runs.
Without
The
any
reason is
water, yeah.
without any water or anything. The reason I do that is I want to expose my system to that slight dehydration because I agree that my body runs a little bit better slightly dehydrated.
And
slightly. There's a fine line, but yeah.
And in a race, you're going to get a chance to take in fluids every 2 miles.
Yes. So if I need those fluids, which
It's
usually I
available,
go for Coke, I will take the Coke. I take the Coke and splash water. I don't try to drink water during a race. I actually like feeling a little thirsty. Now, this is completely my specific plan because I've trained
right.
myself to perform under those conditions. If I was in training on Saturdays and this wasn't working anymore, guess what I would do? Adjust the plan. I would say, all right, I need to bring a bottle with me. Josh brings a bottle with him. Works for him.
It works for him, yeah.
Works for him, absolutely. He's got his cocktail that he uses, and it works perfectly fine for him. I've trained myself to make it 13 miles without needing a lot of fluids. I take one gel during a race, and that's an emergency. I joke it's an emergency gel. I've even not taken it during races and been fine.
It's just funny. You see people
That's when I start to get mentally foggy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you take the gel.
If
you
I-
take a gel with some caffeine in it to hopefully focus you a little bit more.
Yep. I'll even, this is going to sound funny, I'll hit myself during races to wake myself up a little bit. I get very zoned out during the runs. You ever try to have a conversation with a guy running 5:30 pace
Right.
over off the bike? Talk to Sam Long mid-race. I'm sure he's not going to say anything super profound. If I start to feel, I'll talk to myself. If I start to hear myself slur a little bit, I'll hit myself and make sure I take like Coke at the next station. It's a little wake up.
I love
Anything to, I mean, but like nutrition, I always tell people what you want to race is how you need to take in your nutrition. So if you know during races, like I feel like I really need water each time I hit an aid
Right.
station, then know that, okay, on the weekends when I'm doing my longer runs, I'm going to make sure that I take in water every mile or mile and a half, whatever you want to do. And you train your system for 8 to 12 weeks to do that over and over. And on race day, it'll work. Yeah.
So going back to the hydration thing and the sweat thing and cramping thing, I've done some pretty big trainer sessions. We'll say 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I've done them at pretty high intensity. And I will come away from that and there will be a massive puddle below me and I will be so soaking wet. Now, I know that when I'm riding outside, I'm not going to be able to quantify exactly how much I'm sweating, but I can almost
Put a
guarantee
bucket
you.
underneath you.
Yeah, I can, but
Wring out your shirt
yeah.
and do it after.
You know, I just feel like I sweat so much more on the trainer. And I feel like we've done some pretty hard, like even team rides that have been like multiple hours long. You know, you've done centuries on the trainer before,
Yeah.
Lance. And Evan, you've done them all the time as well.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever cramped on the trainer?
Oh yeah, I've been close a couple times, but only only when I'm in the aero position, and
Really?
that's because the trainer sucks for the aero position.
I don't think I ever have.
Okay.
On the trainer.
No, I've done similar intensities. I've done, similar volume, similar length, and I've cramped plenty of times outdoors.
Yeah.
And I've done it pretty repeatedly, and I feel like I sweat less outdoors.
Well,
Because you have evaporative cooling that's having on there, you can't really quantify exactly how much you're actually sweating.
on the
but-
trainer, I do not believe you can have enough fans on you.
Yeah.
If you have 10 fans pointing at
You
you,
need 11.
it's still not enough evaporative cooling from those fans that you would get from outside because you don't have fans pointing at your socks and at your legs and at your back usually, and
Yeah.
and you get evaporative cooling just from being outside and
Yeah.
moving along. So you're always going to have your sweat rate is probably the same indoors and outdoors. You just see it all indoors.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
There's
I also think outdoors. Think about this. You're doing similar efforts, yes, but I know at least from our group rides and knowing how you ride and how we ride on dialed in
you
general.
always are going to ride a little bit harder. It
Yeah,
might be
I think it's
10%,
a little.
5-10%
I think
harder,
that might be that little ticking
that-
point.
that
It
might
might
be it.
be
Might
because
be
I
it.
mean, when I'm in erg mode, I'll be honest. So I mean, me and Josh have gone out and done our sweet spot efforts outside of Vancouver
Sure.
Lake. I'm always 15, 20 watts more out there,
Yeah.
and I don't think that's the trainer to outdoor thing. I think that is more motivated by moving fast.
Yes,
or
correct.
Trying to drop somebody or do,
Yes.
it's like when you're on the trainer,
Or
it's
Strava
like,
is watching.
when you're on the trainer, everybody ever who's been on a trainer, which I'm going to do when I go and get home, is the entire time you're questioning, why am I biking? When you're outside with friends in a group, right? Nobody's ever
Right.
questioning, like, why am I biking? You're like, this is a blast. So
Unless you're getting dropped at Mount Tabor, and it's like, why am I
biking?
I'm just curious though. I'd love to see a study or just hear from people in general. Like, how many times have you cramped on the trainer? And
That
do
would
you
be a cool-
feel like you sweat more. I know it's all very
People who
subjective
Swift
there.
race, I bet. Oh, did I ever cramp during a Swift race? I was very close to cramping during Swift racing over the
Okay.
winter because that's the one time where it's like it simulates that group ride outside where you're pushing way
Right.
outside what you should be doing
Yeah.
for way too long. That's
Okay, so we've kind of boiled it down to what we think is but we're pretty darn sure based on what science says and not what marketing says what's causing cramps. But it's still going to happen regardless. You know, you're
Yeah.
going to make a mistake. We've all made mistakes. I've tried to change up my training and I've tried to do things, and I'll still sometimes get a cramp. But I can sometimes make that cramp kind of go away a little bit, or I can kind of deal with it so that I can kind of get my bearings back and be able to finish a race or a ride the way that I want to. What are some of your techniques for dealing with a cramp in a mid ride or mid training session?
For me, I have to completely smooth out my pedal stroke.
yeah,
Yep.
that's a big one. Yep, you better not have any spikes.
I know spikes.
Me and Nate
I've
had a
just
funny
gotta
talk
be-
about a flogging
I
during
gotta
a
be
flogging
spinning
ride.
circles. I just got to spin circles. I can't be like mashing hard down or
Yep.
pulling up. I just need to smooth it out.
It's
and that
100% about watching those watts.
Yes.
And my body is very, very fickle, and it knows like exactly where like 350 watts is. If I go above that 300
Yep.
or that 350 watt, whatever the
And you
the
better
cramp
ramp
or
up
the
to it
cramp
slow
du jour
too.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you better ramp up to that appropriately. Or it's
and if you've got any water left, you need to be taking
Yep.
it. Yeah, because it could be dehydration, it could be fatigue. It's probably
there
both
was
of those.
there was
things.
that flogging ride where it was hot for the first time. This is the one that I went to. It was really humid that day, I think. And this is when Nate was having a lot of
Cramps,
cramping
yeah.
issues, and so was I. And I realized there was multitude of factors leading to me and Nate doing that. We both had just worked full work days, so rest and recovery
Yep.
was low. We both did not bring enough water or anything. Hydration was bad. And that ride is on the gas from the very start.
going very hard the whole time.
Yeah, me
Yep.
and Nate got way too competitive, and we're trying to take as many pulls as we could. And there you go. So me and Nate were talking towards the
All
end.
three things.
Towards the end, when guys would start to attack, me and him were like, easy, because we had to like ramp up slowly to 350. Like, okay, now we're good. If one of us had gotten out of the saddle once, it was going to be over. Like we were, something was going to blow up. So
That's funny. So going easy on the watts, nice smooth pedal strokes. What else are you guys doing? Oh, and taking in some fluids.
Taking in fluids. That's all I
I would
can
say
do.
try to stay in the saddle too.
100% agree with you.
yeah.
on that.
I think when you go, because I mean, as soon as you go out of the saddle, the natural progression is to plantar flex. So your
Okay.
calves might go on you.
So what happens when your quad slams and then you like back off and then your hamstring slams? Because I've had that happen too.
Oh,
Imagine your
God,
body's
yeah.
most desperate way to defend the motion it doesn't want to do
gosh.
anymore. Yeah. Anytime you're getting jumping cramps, like we're going from muscle group to muscle
Have you
group.
had to stop and get off
That-
a bike?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That tells me more than anything that your system is actually it's a central issue, which means that this is not peripheral. This isn't like, oh man, the quads are overworked. No, this is like central system telling you whatever effort
Something's
you're putting
wrong.
in right now, we're
Is
shutting this
too
down.
much.
We're shutting this down right now.
I did the Grand Hincapi Grand Fondo in Boise a couple years ago, and it was like 95 degrees, and it was like an 85-mile race.
Oh God.
And I was super dehydrated at the top of this big climb, and I filled up my bottles, and I was so out of it, I left without taking my bottles. I left them, and it was like this 5-mile downhill, and I didn't realize it till I was at the bottom of the hill. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm already dehydrated, and now I've left my bottles. I've got nothing. At the top of the next climb, I cramped so bad. Quads, calves, hamstrings, all three major muscle groups were cramping in both legs. I had to stop. I'm like screaming on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Some guy rides by and he's like, here, dude, take my bottle. You look like you need it. I'm so far gone. And that was clearly a central issue because I was
Oh yeah.
I was dehydrated.
There we go. So we can keep going through case studies on this. What was that? Probably exposure fatigue. I mean, at some level there.
Yeah, I'm like Miles 60.
Dehydration, obviously.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dehydration. Yep.
If you didn't sleep well the night before, there you go. There's your third. Yeah.
I slept in the van and our AC wasn't working.
There you go.
I
There's
didn't
number
sleep
3.
at all.
Yep.
Like
there's number 3.
Yeah.
I think the one takeaway from this I want people to realize is that there is, whenever you're talking about complex things like this, understand it's going to be a multitude of factors.
Right.
So as long as you're aware that there's not going to be the one, holy grail answer where it's like, I have found the perfect scratch combination in Infinite that I will never cramp under any load of wattage ever again. It doesn't exist, man. I don't care. I don't care how much money you just paid for that. You probably just ripped yourself off. So understand that there's a multitude of reasons. And sometimes if you just gradiate your training well, sleep well, and drink a good amount of water and electrolytes without obsessing over it, you're probably going to be okay. So I think it's important to just realize that a nice middle approach is probably going to help you long term.
What are we missing, Jake, in preventing the cramps?
I don't think we're missing anything preventing. I mean, for me, the biggest thing is just making sure that I'm physically preparing myself and kind of overreaching well before I get to that race, so that when I do get to the race, it's prehydration, but it's overreaching in the training too, and that's not like a week or two before. That's months before, so that when I get to the race, that race is well within the scope of what my body's capacities are.
Right.
So that I know that, all right, this is my time period, so I got that part covered, and I know I'm going to burn this many matches during that race. Yeah. And I've maybe we'll say it's 15, and I've been going out and I've been doing training blocks that have 20 in there, so that's within my wheelhouse. Yep. And hopefully there won't be any other external factors that are going to play a part there, whether it be like poor sleep or excessive heat or just something along those lines. I mean, I've had races like where we went out and we did. What was it? The Barton Circuit race, the Barton Park Circuit race. And I remember doing that race. This was the first time I was out there with our teammate Michael Myers, who's no longer with us. Just a great guy, and that was one of the very fun races, like one of the first races that I did with him. We're out there doing this, and it was 8 laps, and it was like a 6 mile and change lap, and there was this climb on it called the wall.
Yeah, there was a wall on it.
And it was a big kicker, real slight little reprieve, and then another even bigger, steeper kicker, and you just had to go up that thing 8 times at race pace.
That's terrible.
And it was just like monotony. And the 7th time we went up that, I cramped so bad. And Michael was just done. He fell off the back, and I'm breaking a cramp every single pedal stroke to get to the top of this thing. And I got to the top, and I put my nose down, and I'm like, just keep your watts, manage your watts. And I lost contact with the group. I was probably a good 100, 200 meters behind them. And I just put my nose down, and for whatever reason on that last lap, they kind of slowed up just a touch because I think there's a little bit of that cat and mouse game going on there.
Yeah.
I kept my nose down, and I kept the watts under 350 watts and just time trialed. And I made it back to them on the long, slow descent on the backside, and I sat in, and I stretched. I smooth pedaled.
Yeah.
I drafted.
Yeah.
And there was one other thing that I do from time to time that seems to help, but that's like a little bit of a percussion on the cramp itself, almost like hitting it a little bit.
Vibratory massage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm like kind of like doing light punches with my fist, like on my quads and my calves. And I was just working it out, and I was not attacking anything at all. And we get to that 8th and final time of going up that thing, and I won.
Yeah.
How scared were you going into that climb that you're like, God, as soon as I got a saddle, this is
blow
going to blow up.
I thought I was done. But here's the thing, though, is I still cramped at the top of that. I managed myself. It was the second kicker we went up. I got out of the saddle, and that's the big no-no right there. Yeah. I'm like, you got it. That was the only shot I had. I had to get out of the saddle. I had to create gap and some space there.
Yeah.
And I was pushing so hard, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs because every single time it was breaking a cramp. I just had to get over the top of that, and then somehow convince my legs that you can just hold 350 watts for that last couple hundred meters, but you're not going to be able to out sprint anybody at the very finish.
Because
you
get some
get
space.
to the top, crest, it comes down ever so slightly and bends a little bit right, and there's the finish line that's like 100 meters up. And I just needed to create that space, and I managed to do that. And I remember getting back to the car, and I didn't say anything to Michael. He went a different way back than I did. I don't know what it was, but we met up in the car, and he's getting all this stuff, and he's putting it in the car, and he thought that he knew I had cramps, and he thought that for sure that I was done, and he had already put all the stuff away. I'm like, I got to go over here now. And he's like, why? I'm like, I got to go do the podium. He's like, podium? He's like, you're on the podium? I'm like, yeah, I won. He's like, what? It's like, you were like in tetany. Your legs were like fully cramped. And yeah, so that worked out well for me, that little percussion thing. And like Lance said, the smooth sailing or smooth pedaling and whatnot. So that was kind of my little fix to that. And I've used that method quite a few times. It's happened to me like just going on long, aggressive team rides with the likes
start
of
to feel it.
the jokers on our team that like to go long and hard.
Yeah.
Seriously, yeah.
So,
we got too many of those guys now. Too many.
Any other things on the how-to or the solve list?
Know your limits, folks.
Know your limits. Evan, are you having to step out now?
Having to step out, yeah. Got
Okay.
the kids' class and some stuff.
Thank you for your time.
No problem.
We were going to do a Tour de France, kind of like a little preview. We're going to start like a little 3-week series, I think it is, of just talking about some riders. Is there just a couple names that you want to throw out there? And we'll pick you apart after you leave.
I'm going to be so boring here, but I will tell you what. My bet is going to be so safe. It is going to be a battle of the Slovenians. The end. It is going to be Roglic versus Pogačar, and then the battle for third will be one of the most exciting battles for third in the Tour.
You think so? Huh?
I've got my third pick already.
Richie Port.
Richie Ford.
Okay, yeah. Is it really? Yes, it's Richie Port.
Oh my gosh, he's still standing firm on the fact that he thinks that Richie Port's going to be their
Too
GC
predictable.
guy. I love it.
Called that a year ago. 2 years ago now, actually. It was 2 years ago.
What's your call on Chris Froome, whether he even makes the team? Is he even going to make it to the Tour?
I love how Chris Froome says, like, okay, I'm not going to win the Tour, but I'm still going for Tour wins. I'm like, really? You're going for stage wins, Chris. I'm sorry. Chris Froome deserves respect. Like, that man should be able to retire, and people say, like, he was one of the best GC contenders ever. But the fact that in that man's head he thinks he's going to compete for stage wins is delusional, because he's not even close.
Yeah.
That's funny.
He's done.
Yeah. Poor Chris. That was so tough to watch in the criteria. It's tough to watch that guy get dropped off because he's been working so hard to try to be there, and it's just
too much.
Yeah,
He's too deep of a hole.
Tour's fast. I do have another like little dark horsey pick that we're going to talk about. I think 2 stage wins for Americans.
That'd be
Really?
fantastic.
Yep.
Sepp?
Some real, yeah. I think
Sepp
either
or,
Sepp, Lawson Craddock. I think
Lawson
Craddock,
Craddock
yeah.
or Brandon McNulty has
Yes,
also.
McNulty
McNulty.
McNulty's looking great. Yes, there's going to be some
Are they
young
both
Americans.
on EF still?
No,
Who's McNulty?
UAE.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
UAE.
UAE.
Gotcha.
Yep. UAE, EF, and then Jumbo Visma for Sepkus. Yeah.
Yep.
There's a couple other Americans that are
That'd
going
be
to be good in there coming up. Yeah.
See, we got talking about TDF, and now Evan doesn't want to go.
I know. Yeah. All right, I gotta go. We will for sure the next couple weeks be talking about.
Thanks, Evan. Appreciate it. Cool. All right, Lance, what do you think?
Tour de France.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to say that Remco Evenepoel would have done well, but he did his first Grand Tour at the Euro, and he didn't even make it through the whole thing.
Yeah.
He kind of fell apart. So he's young. He's 21 still. So that I was hoping he just has showed so much promise, and he's been so strong in some. He just hasn't done 3-week, stage races.
Did they ever decide or come out or talk about what they took out of his pocket? What
No.
was in that vial?
No.
They just kind of like buried that,
Yeah.
swept it under the rug.
Yeah, it's nothing else has come out from that, as far as I know.
Gotcha.
So it kind of went away.
So Evan Poole,
But I do think Evan's right. I do think that it's going to be a battle between Pogačar and Primož Roglic.
yeah.
You know, Bernal, he won the Euro, so that shows some promise. Is it too
does.
much to race the Euro and then back it up with the Tour? Maybe.
Did he have any back problems during the Giro?
He didn't.
Okay.
His
And
back
that's-
didn't bother him. He had, in the last week, he had a couple of bad days,
Yeah.
but it wasn't enough that he lost the Tour. And he only won it by a minute, which is
Gotcha.
not very much in a Grand Tour.
All right.
So
Well, how about that? We'll leave it at those names for now. We're just going to put some names out there just to kind of like start to stew around and talk. And I'm sure those names will come back up again. We'll have a list of names next week when Evan's here, and Matt as well. Matt was swimming with the fish today.
yeah.
And we'll start just talking about more riders. They're going to be doing this whole Tour de France thing coming up next month. Kind of getting excited for that.
It's kind of exciting.
Yeah, I can't believe it's already here.
Yeah.
Well, almost already here.
Almost
but, yeah.
here.
Cool. How about we do some Patreon drawing stuff? We've got our big bin of goodies here, and Nathan Skanke, who won a few weeks ago, he didn't pull anything out of the bin. He actually decided he wanted a dialed hat. So
that's cool.
We worked that out, and he should actually be receiving that. I think even today, maybe. I don't know, but
luck,
I
Nathan.
get to pull it out of here.
Yep.
So, all right, drum roll, please. Do 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 do. Hey, she's won before a bunch of times. What do you think her name is?
I don't know.
Dove Eric.
Oh, Dove Eric.
I guess we started over. So she's won a few times, and she just won again. Dove, if you want to reach out to us, your name is now going into the winner's baggie, and you're not going to be eligible to win anything until everybody else is done here, and we'll put everyone back in the little jar. But if you want to reach out, let me know what you want out of that bin. I'll send you a picture, and once I get an email from you of what's in there, and you can pick and choose, and we'll drop her in the mail, and you'll be all set.
There's only 7 non-winners left in there, so your chances are getting better.
Better and better, folks. Oh, and if you want to become a new patron, we'll put your name in there, and you can be a part of that little select pool, and you'll win something sooner than later, right?
Yes.
So if you're interested in becoming a patron, go to dialpodcast.com, and you can click on the Patreon link there to get yourself set up as a patron to help support the show. Just a couple bucks, and yeah, you can help us out.
Love it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Cool beans.
Champ here. I'm all about having
Champ
fun.
here.
All right, Champ. All right, go.
Champ here.
Champ here. That's all we need is that bit.
Probably the biggest race in the country happened this last weekend with
Is there a bigger
Unbound.
race in the country on any platform, other than maybe Ironman?
I don't know. I don't think so. It was just it just went off phenomenal. It went off huge.
Yeah.
So Unbound Gravel happened in Emporia, Kansas, in the Flint Hills of Kansas. They actually have several different races. There's the main race is the 200-mile race, which is actually 204 miles or something like that.
5.
And it's almost 12,000 feet of climbing.
Yeah.
I was wrong last week.
Yeah, I asked Lance about that on our our ride over the weekend. Like, how many feet of elevation gain was it? And I think you said it was like, I think it's like 5,000 or 6,000 feet. I'm like, I thought it was more than that. It was more like almost 12,000.
It was 12. Yeah. There's no big climbs. It's just all these rolling hills. And after 200 miles, you're going to rack up some elevation gain. So, ended up being a very difficult day out on the course. It was 85, 90 degrees and high humidity, but the biggest thing was the last 100 miles dealt with a pretty stiff headwind for the whole last 100 miles.
That's
like
rough.
Like in the 20-mile-an-hour range of
Seriously?
headwinds. Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
So if you were by yourself or you weren't in a group, you were suffering for sure. So pretty crazy. There was a lot of big favorites in this race, in the men's race, but it ended up coming down to 4 former World Tour pros.
Yep.
And it actually came down to a sprint finish between Ian Boswell and Lawrence Tendam, and Ian Boswell ended up winning by a bike length.
That is so close
So,
after all of those variables and that much distance on gravel with headwinds.
On gravel. He won
bike
by
length.
bike length, which is just kind of amazing. There was a group of 5 together, in the last 50 miles or so, which included former winner Colin Strickland, and Peter Stetina was in there, and also former 2-time winner Ted King.
Yep.
They were all in there. Strickland got a flat and kind of lost contact.
I thought he had a chain issue, a chain drop or
That
a chain.
was Peter Stetina.
Oh, Stetina. Okay, gotcha.
Stetina attacked on one of the final climbs, and near the top of the climb, he had chain suck.
Yeah, a little chain issue.
And he
there.
had to jump off, and it was just enough of a gap that he couldn't pull it back.
Yeah.
He couldn't pull it back. So him and Ted King finished a minute back from the other 2 guys.
They must have really turned it on at the end.
They were just trying to kind of bury themselves to get there, which is kind of crazy.
Do you think it was them burying themselves as much as it was for them just to try and get rid of those guys? Like, hey, let's work together to make sure that they don't catch back on?
I don't know. I don't know, because it was Ted King and Peter Stetina working together.
Yeah.
And Lawrence Tendam and Ian Boswell working together. They both had a group of 2 that they were kind of trying to work each other, and it was a minute-long gap, which is not that far, but they just kind of held it. So, pretty crazy. Lot of other World Tour favorites all kind of crapped out. Quinn Simmons, kind of a controversial figure because he said some anti-racist stuff on Twitter last year, and he got some flack for that. There are a lot of people that did not want to see him win because of that. He races for Trek Segafredo, and he also won the World Championships in the junior race 2 years ago. He got a flat tire and was chasing back on after the flat, ended up crashing because he was taking some chances and ripped his knee open enough that he had to go to the hospital for stitches.
Oops.
So he got pulled from the race. Or he didn't get pulled from the race. He, bailed.
Yeah.
Payson McKelvin, who we love him on the show. He is a fantastic racer and whatnot, but he was dealing with Giardia symptoms for the whole week beforehand. He ended up on race day feeling actually pretty good, but mile 25, right at the beginning, he dealt with a mechanical issue that I haven't been able to discover what that mechanical issue was, but it held him up by 25 minutes to solve it. Enough that he was out of it. And
did he finish the race or did he bail?
He did finish the race. He still finished. He said that he passed like 675 people. That's how he kept his brain going, by counting the people he was passing as he was trying to catch back on. And he even said, the back half of the race, everybody just loves you. They're like, oh, Payson, go for it. People would stop and say, what can I give you to help you? How do we solve this? He just said, the feeling in these gravel races is just different. It's more of an event and less of a
it's a community
measuring contest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that was kind of exciting. But all the other World Tour pros that were there all kind of crapped out.
How about Dylan Johnson? How did he end up?
He ended up 12th. He actually did quite well.
Yeah, we were checking results as the day was going on, and there was a point in time where I saw him. I think he was 26th or 28th place. So he made up some time.
Interestingly enough, 12th was an hour back.
Oh wow.
So, but 10 and a half hour race, you're going to be.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll have a recap video that he'll put up on the station. So I'm really looking forward to hearing that. Did he have a mechanical? Did he have some hydration issues? Did he have some food, or was he giving it 100%? And those guys were just that much faster.
Right.
So he's got a lot of upside. I'm curious to see how he does.
So that was all pretty exciting to watch. On the women's side, the race was won by Lauren Di Crescenzo. Am I saying that right? She's a Brazilian athlete. Yep. If you followed on Twitter, Jeff Kabush, he's a former winner, and he's a very vocal Twitter guy. He definitely did not want Di Crescenzo to win because she has some suspension history for positive tests in her history. However, she dealt with a traumatic brain injury on a bike race where she spent. This was 5 years ago. She's still coming back from a very bad traumatic brain injury where she ended up in a rehab facility for 2 months.
Oh wow!
So it was significant, and the fact that she was out there racing again, is fantastic. Her suspension history is a long time ago. However, she is being coached by Tom Danielson, and he has a lot of drug history as well. And so there was a lot of Di Crescenzo hate going on in the Twitterverse.
Really?
I'll just say
well,
that. So what do you say?
It's a tough situation, too, because like we've talked about before, these aren't sanctioned races by governing bodies that are going to go out and test. So
that is also correct.
She very well could be showing up. Now, it's just speculative, but
it's all speculative.
You don't know for sure, but how do you go about the testing procedure here?
Yeah, I don't know. There's no sanctioning body, so
it would be kind of cool to keep it decentralized, but it would also be really cool if everybody were just to kind of volunteer and step up and say, "I'm going to pay for myself to be tested, and I'm clean."
Right.
I think that would be a good way to go. And if you're going to say, "No, I'm not," then you're just going to have that scarlet letter on your chest of I'm refusing to be tested. Well, why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So second place in the women's race was Amity Rockwell. She won it 2 years ago, so she kind of backed up her. She made up some ground in the last 50 miles too, so which was kind of exciting. She was not even in the top 5, but she ended up pulling herself in there. So kind of kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Lots of big names.
There was a 350-mile version.
Yeah, they call it the Unbound XL. It's a 350-mile version. Some dude did it in 22 hours and change. He averaged like 15.6 miles an hour for 22 hours. He did not sleep at all. A lot of racers. There was only like 20 people that actually finished the XL.
Yeah.
The 350 miles. But pretty amazing that he did that. The women's XL was won by Lael Wilcox, who is a
He's kind of renowned for the
legend
ultra,
for ultra cycling.
Yeah.
Actually, Lael Wilcox was just last month was in Oregon trying to take the fastest known time on the Oregon backcountry route that's held by Stephen Hartzell.
Okay.
She did not get Hartzell's record. It's like a 400-mile route across backcountry.
Oh, wow.
Backcountry Oregon, maybe 350 miles or something like that. So Lael Wilcox is a hitter, but she was second in that. They also had a 100-mile race and a 50-mile race. I should have gone out there and done the kitty race in the 50 miles. That would have been great. Anyway.
So our teammate, Chris Surratt, was
Chris
there.
Surratt went out there.
Have you talked with him?
I have not talked with him.
I wanted to call. I'm like, nah, I don't want to bug him. He's probably just shelled right now. And I'm like, text him like, no, I want the full story. I don't want to just go back and forth and test. I'll just wait until he gets back home. So, but you said that he didn't fly there. He drove?
He drove.
With his wife, right?
Yes, with his wife. Kansas is right in the middle of the country. And so from here, it's really only like a 2-day drive. It's not that far. And having his own vehicle, his wife having his own vehicle, not having to pack up bikes and fly. You'd have to fly into Kansas City, and then it's like a 3-hour drive to Emporia. It made more sense for him to
take your own
just
creature comforts, all your stuff, and just take your time. Yeah.
So they drove out there. What was
his little? So you've got your Strava post here, and it's posted, and it's the titled 2021 Unbound Gravel, and he's in the 200-mile version of it. So he did the
big one,
the big one,
or the main one.
Yep. And then there's the description underneath. This is the part, because if you know Chris Surratt, he's about as tough as nails as they get. I mean, he will do everything. He will go hard. He'll keep up with everybody. He'll never complain about everything. Nope. And he doesn't really like, you ask him how to go, went good. It's just like he's just always so even keeled.
Yes.
And the first thing it says, hardest thing I've ever done on a bike, period. That's it. I mean, if Surratt's saying it's that hard, I'm like, ooh, maybe I don't need to have that on my bucket list. I mean, that's 205.92 miles. It took him 13 hours and 43 minutes, and he did 11,611 feet of climbing.
Yeah.
The metric that they give you for how hard your
relative effort
was, I've seen mine before in like the 300s, maybe a 400 in there.
Yeah.
This one was 719. Like, good
oh my gosh,
God.
Chris.
Like, his calories, I mean, he probably burned, 8,000 or 9,000 calories on that? It's just absolutely bonkers. So
it's the day was really hard for these mid-packers, or even if they were in Chris was in the front part of the race. Not the front part, but, in the front third of the race.
Sure.
It was difficult for all of them because that last 100 miles dealt with these 20-mile-an-hour headwinds, and if you weren't in a group, you were suffering.
Yeah,
I do know from some exchanges with his wife that he had come into the aid station at mile 150 or 140, and he was ruined. He was done at that point, and he still had 60 miles to go, something like that.
Yeah.
And he took some time in that aid station. He wasn't even sure he was going to get back on his bike to finish it, but he did, and he rolled his leg over that bike and ended up finishing this race. He ended up beating. Once you're out of the race, the next big goal is to beat the sun, to make it to the finish line before the sun goes down.
Yeah.
And he crossed the finish line 40 seconds before actual sunset.
That's awesome.
So he actually beat the sun, which was
it says, with about 40 miles to go, I did the math and realized I could still beat the sun if I pushed. Kicked it up a notch and absolutely buried myself back to town. Beat the sun by 40 seconds. Yeah, boy.
Yeah, just amazing.
That's kind of fun. Well, like that. If he didn't have that, he probably wouldn't I mean, he probably would have maybe taken another hour. You don't know. But just having that in the back of your head to take your mind off of how bad you're hurting, how much you're suffering, and how much everything sucks, and you start crunching numbers, that really helps the time go by.
I've been asked by lots of teammates and fans of the show, hey, why aren't you doing Unbound? And I have no interest in being on my bike for 13 hours.
Yeah.
I can't. That just is. I've done some big long stuff, and I just completely crumble, and so I'm not really.
I'm not 100% opposed to it. The hard thing for me is like finding the time to make that happen, to train for it. I don't, because I wouldn't want to just do it just to finish it. I would want to do it to have a respectable time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be anywhere close. I probably wouldn't even come close to what Surratt's time was, but to do it in under 15 hours, I don't know if I could do that, but to train for that, it's a big commitment.
You got to have some 7 or 8 hour days.
Yeah.
Just prepping for that.
Yeah. I just don't have that time. Maybe once all my kids are, graduated from high school and off and doing their own thing, and it's just me and my wife, and I've got a little bit more free time, maybe, but now I'm getting pretty old.
But I'm there, and I have no interest in doing it.
Yeah.
I don't even want to do that.
But you know what? If I said I was going to do it, and I came to you and said, and there's another half dozen of us, do you want to come with us? You'd be on it like stink on poo.
Yeah, you're right. If there was 5 or 6 of us out there just rolling together, you bet.
Yeah, that would be a blast, I think, just to kind of be the glue to keep everybody together. But being on your bike, like you said, 13, 14 hours, that's miserable.
We did have another local guy, Alex Yale, who races for Pacific Office Automation. Yep. He went out there. He's been very fit this year, and he ended up 22nd overall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he did quite well as well. So
he's a Cat 1 roadie guy?
I think so, yes. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, pretty crazy.
Unbound. Good on all y'all. I have mad respect for what Mr. Surratt and everybody else did in that race.
There's so much stuff online. I was just eating it up all weekend long, watching. I didn't watch it because it was only on Flow Sports, and you had to pay like $13 a month and sign a year-long thing to do it. And I just
saw an email come through from USA Cycling this morning about some sort of a partnership that they just created with Flow Sports to start broadcasting races. Did you see? I didn't get a chance to look at the whole thing, but I'll have to pull that up. There's some sort of a new partnership and agreement between USA Cycling and Flow. That's good for bike racing.
That is good.
That's really good for internet or like national bike racing. If you can start watching the likes of like criteriums and road races and gravel and all that other stuff here in the United States, that's going to get more people excited about riding and racing bikes.
Well, a lot of the crits, there is a website that broadcasts the crits for free.
Really?
Yes. It's like uscrits.us or something. I don't know what it is, but I know a lot of the crit races are all already broadcast for free.
No, that's good.
So,
but
yeah, all this other stuff.
Any more exposure we can get for cycling, the better.
Yeah,
cool.
Exactly.
Anything else? Am I forgetting anything?
The Dauphiné finished up. I guess did we talk about that with Evan? We did.
No,
just
a little bit. Yeah.
Richie Porte ended up winning the Dauphiné. And that's all I know. I don't even know.
And then Evan promptly doubled down on Richie Porte winning the Tour de France and being the GC guy for. Oh, geez.
No, Bernal's going to be the guy for Ineos anyway. Yeah.
Oh, what about Carapaz?
Do you see? Yeah, there's lots of guys. No. Yeah. It's not going to be Richie Porte.
What about Geraint Thomas? I mean, what's he doing?
He's going to be there as well. So yeah,
he's really going to double down on Richie Porte, huh?
I don't know. Evan lives in his own world. We like that.
That's awesome. Cool. All right, I think we're long enough into this show.
Oh my goodness, we are. Champ out.
Champ, see you, buddy. Hey, I think that's about it for this week. I don't really have much else to talk about, and I don't know, we've got some guests that we're trying to get lined up.
We're trying to line some stuff up.
We've got some other people that are going to come in here and talk and whatnot. So we've been talking about that for a little while, but it's just been busy times. But we'll get them there. We will be back next week, live streaming and doing all that fun stuff. And we really do appreciate everybody that listens and supports the show. It's just really fun to just being at the triathlon race this weekend. I'm like, I'm not a triathlete. I don't speak triathlon. I still have people come up and talk to me about the podcast.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
You should just stick to riding bikes. So. Anyhow, we appreciate everybody that listens and gives us feedback and supports, and it's just fun. I love this community, and I love what this has done. It's just been pretty spectacular. So we do appreciate all of you. We will see you next week. Bye for now.